Still wearing this thing. It's hanging on by a thread. It's coming off today. I kind of feel sad because I feel like it's become a part of me. Maybe my skin will grow over it and it will be a part of me forever. Oh, and there I go, hitting my NutriSense. You can't plan this, folks. That's one of the negatives. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Let Me Learn Ya. Today, we're gonna be talking, you son of a monkey's goat. Today's episode is going to be talking about continuous glucose monitors and specifically the company NutriSense. People are freaked the fork out about blood sugar. And there are a lot of famous doctors I have to blame. Everyone from the Hymans to the Bergs to the Mercolas. The problem is usually that they are using either antiquated or poorly designed studies or animal models to have everybody terrified that even an ounce of sugar in your blood is what is going to unalive you. When you combine the fear-mongering of carbs equals diabetes with the knowledge that the glycemic index table is pretty much useless for the majority of the population because blood sugar response is so individual. Watch my video if you haven't watched it. It explains all of this. You get the natural rise in popularity of something called continuous glucose monitors. In today's episode, if I don't sweat myself out of existence, you will learn about what continuous glucose monitors are. You're going to hear about my experience using one from the company NutriSense. And lastly, you're going to hear my recommendations as to using a continuous glucose monitor. I'm going to be calling them CGMs going forward because I am lazy. I'm the laziest person in the world. I'm so lazy. CGMs are tools built for people with type 1 diabetes. But research is currently being conducted to find out if there's any benefit to people with type 2 diabetes using a CGM. So a CGM is usually a very small sensor placed on either your arm or your belly. These sensors measure the fluid that is in between your cells. Depending on the device, it can take a measurement every minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, yada yada. Then a transmitter sends that data to some sort of phone or device where you can see and manage your blood sugar. These sensors need to be changed regularly depending on the device, sometimes every 7 to 14 days. So there are advantages and disadvantages to CGMs. The advantages are less finger prick tests. So if you are somebody with diabetes, you know that you have to frequently test your blood sugar. With these CGMs, you implant it once and leave it there for 7 to 14 days. And a finger stick test only measures your glucose in one specific moment in time, whereas CGM measures it continuously throughout the day and gives you a much better overall picture of how you respond to everything when you're asleep, when you're eating, when you're exercising. By getting constant updates about their blood sugar levels, they're less likely to have extremely low blood sugar emergencies. It helps people to easily and quickly adjust their dosages of medications and develop a personalized meal plan because you are always seeing how you react to foods. But there are some disadvantages, mainly being that it measures that interstitial fluid that I told you about. Glucose can take longer to diffuse into that fluid than it does into the blood. So there's always going to be a little bit of a delay with these CGMs. In general, they're not as accurate as the finger stick test or getting a test in a lab, obviously. So it's still recommended to do 2 finger stick tests a day to ensure that your CGM is calibrated with the results of that finger stick test. And the biggest problem with these CGMs that I think a lot of health professionals probably share with me is that they're now available to the public. Anybody can get a CGM. They could possibly freak out healthy people who do not have diabetes, who are not even heading towards diabetes, to freak out unnecessarily about their body reacting naturally to carbohydrates. Oh my God, I don't know how to drink fluids. I'm like that guy on Airplane. So there are 3 reasons why I tried NutriSense. I'm gonna be very honest with y'all. They reached out and they asked if I would be interested in trying their product for 2 weeks in exchange for me making a TikTok video about my experience. They did not pressure me into saying anything, and if they did, I wouldn't have done it. Here are the details. I received the sensor for free and I got a 2-week free trial. I did not receive a dime. And the link that I'm going to be sharing with you guys to enter at checkout if you choose to get a NutriSense monitor is not an affiliate link, and I don't get jack from it. My opinion is my own, my words are my own, and honestly, even if they were paying me, I would still say this, okay? Because that's how I am. One of the reasons why I responded to NutriSense was because I was already thinking about trying a continuous glucose monitor. I have diabetes in my family, my immediate family and my extended family. Because I have diabetes in my family, I always kind of keep an eye on my fasting blood glucose. During the COVID years, I was seeing my blood sugar start creeping up. So the idea that I could have a window into everything that was going on, from exercise to eating to sleeping, was very appealing to me. If you start heading in the way of diabetes, that is the best time to take action. And the last reason is because that multiple clients and commenters have asked me about this product. So I thought, why not use my privilege? I'm getting this thing for free. They're very expensive, spoiler alert. So that if any of you are on the fence about whether or not you want to invest that money, you can at least hear from somebody that hopefully you somewhat trust. Ordering was a freaking breeze. Their customer service was very nice, very quick to respond. I do not follow instructions. I do not follow instructions because I do not read instructions. I skim an email. I skip point 3 and 4 that I was supposed to do before point 1, and I screw things up. The employees that helped me were very patient and fixed everything immediately. A couple notes on requirements. Number 1, your phone has to have something called NFC compatibility. I quickly Googled if my phone did. You can do it yourself. Just know that NutriSense makes very clear if your phone is not NFC compatible, they will not give you a refund for the sensor not working, because they warned ya. Also know that they require an ID, so if you don't have something like that, you better get one. They asked demographic questions, age, weight, even body fat percentage. They asked about my health history, if I had any food allergies or intolerances, and a lot of behavioral stuff too, which was kind of weird to me because it was starting to sound at this point like a diet application. It was very new me, asking me about what types of things prevent me from reaching my health goals, what type of an eater I am, what kind of health coaching I prefer. They requested a full body photo of me. This was optional, so keep that in mind. But why would they require a full body photo from me unless this was kind of a let's help you lose weight thing and monitor your changes? There were just a lot of questions that made me think that maybe in the earlier iterations of NutriSense, it had been more focused on weight loss, but it wasn't anymore because it just didn't fit with the rest of the experience. Once you put in your order and you've uploaded all the documents that you need to and you've answered all the questions, you then wait 24 hours for what your next steps are going to be in email. Once that happened, they said I was approved for the monitor and I received it by the end of the week. So the instructions were very easy to follow. They had a step-by-step picture graphic of how to place the sensor onto your arm. Again, I was terrified because I'm horrible with instructions, but these were very simple and they had pictures. So I don't know, I guess I'm a toddler. Initially, I wasn't terrified at all of the thing, but when I opened it up and saw what looked like a very large needle in the middle, I kind of panicked because I was thinking this thing is going to be in my arm for 2 weeks and that's a pretty big freaking needle. Also, I'm going to have to jam that into my body on my own. But when I actually did it, like I got the courage to do it, I'm not BSing you guys. I didn't feel anything. It didn't hurt at all. All I felt was a very mild stinging sensation for maybe 10 minutes. Once you've got the sensor smashed up onto your arm. You put your little protective bandage over it, which I did horribly wrong. In typical fashion. So I can't replace this bandage without taking off the whole sensor because I'm an idiot. Once you've got this in place, you download the NutriSense app and you calibrate it with your CGM. My experience initially was that it was a pain in the butt. Because, and I don't know where I saw these instructions, I couldn't find the places they were telling me to go within the app because they weren't there anymore. So I was very confused and I was starting to get frustrated. Then, because I guess every phone is different, it didn't tell me where this NFC antenna was on my phone. So I was holding my phone in all kinds of weird ways trying to get it to scan, and it just kept failing and failing and failing. Again, I finally Googled it, found out where it was, and then it was pretty easy to scan. But after that, didn't have a problem going forward. I've got positives and I've got some negatives. Positives is this thing was seriously easy to use overall. Most of the time, the user interface of the application was very easy to navigate. Scanning it was very easy. Everything was easy, honestly. It was pretty stinking accurate most of the time. I did test this against my finger stick test and it was only off by like a few points. They give you the option to calibrate your CGM with your finger stick results if it continues to be off. So that's an option for you. They provide a ton of information. They give you nutrition information. They give you explanations about continuous glucose monitors, all of the data that they're collecting, what that data means. They must have hundreds of articles in there, and every single article is pretty hefty. Most of the time when I'm looking into these health companies that were funded and started by engineers and entrepreneurs, I immediately pick up on the bull. And I wasn't picking up on bull with this company. I never felt like I was being misled. I never felt like they were sharing any type of misinformation. I didn't feel pressured in any way to be anti-carbohydrate or try to lose weight. Nothing. And I was looking. So, I look for that. They have almost 50 dietitians on staff. Dietitians, not health coaches, not people who used to be customers and are now selling the product. While they're still not paying them as much as I think dietitians should be paid, but I don't think dietitians are getting paid as much as they should pretty much anywhere. They are definitely paying more than what Noom was paying their dietitians. And I don't think they have dietitians anymore, you guys. More on that when I do an update on my Noom review. The dietitian that I had was super nice. She was very attentive. She was telling me things that I would be telling my own clients. So I approved of that because anybody who says things that I say is cool in my book, right? Don't judge me for being egotistical. She didn't try to pressure me into losing weight. She never once said any type of fear-mongering words about carbohydrates. She was just trying to walk me through my experience and explain the results that I was seeing. So I really liked my dietitian. I really enjoyed monitoring my responses to foods. I am obsessed with how the human body works, and I feel like we're so limited in our understanding. To have a window placed on my body where I could see, oh my God, this is what's going on the inside, right? They grade your response to these foods on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being cool, you had the best possible response. You had your spike, but it didn't last that long. It didn't go too high. Some of my top meals that got 10s were things like instant oatmeal and pastas and beans and tortillas. So I personally wasn't shocked by that because I was also making sure as a dietitian to incorporate those carbohydrates with proteins, fat, and fiber. It was so interesting to me to see the science actually play out in my body. The other thing that was interesting to see was my body's response to the exact same meal at different times of the day. Our cells are more insulin sensitive in the morning and they become less sensitive as the day progresses. This is exactly what happened to me. I ate a meal at night where it had like maybe a score of 5. Just for funsies, I decided to test that same meal in the morning and I got like a 9 or 10. Yes, exercise totally matters. If I would drink something like a Yakult with a matcha latte, which is literally just pure sugars, unadulterated sugars going into my body, and then worked out about an hour afterwards, my blood sugar would spike and immediately go back to normal, where if I didn't do that exercise, it would not stabilize as quickly. If the light keeps changing, it's because I'm using natural light, and I have been delayed so often that I started this at like 11 o'clock in the morning and it's now 5 p.m. I have no idea what's going on in life or right now. I also loved seeing how my physical response matched the response I was seeing on the screen. We pretty much ignore our bodies and wonder why. Why do we feel really tired when we eat this food or whatever? We don't think about those things. We just think there's something wrong with our body or something's going weird. Well, let me tell you what. I decided to treat myself to a boba tea for the first time in probably 10 years. I had breakfast, I ran errands all freaking day, all afternoon. I didn't eat anything. And then I splurged on a boba tea at about 4 o'clock. And I didn't even drink all of it. I drank half of it. And about an hour and a half to 2 hours later, I crashed. My eyes were just like, ugh, and I was zoning out. I was exhausted. I got home, cleaned up a bit, started making dinner, and by the time I sat down to eat dinner, my hands were shaking. And I was like, good gravy, what happened? And sure enough, that boba tea spiked my blood sugar so high and so hard that there was the subsequent crash where my blood sugar almost went below like 70, which would be considered hypoglycemic. And right around the time it was that low was when I started getting the shakes. I totally gorged on chocolate covered almonds one day, didn't feel any of those effects. And when I checked my blood sugar, it hardly affected my blood sugar at all. Anyone in the keto carnivore community would be like, oh my God, you just ate chocolate covered almonds. That's a ton of sugar. So bad for you, gonna spike your blood sugar. Nope, didn't. Neither did oatmeal, neither did flour tortillas, neither did beans. The one thing that actually spiked my blood sugar that I consider a health food, and I still do, was sweet potato, which ironically enough is actually low glycemic index. So number one, just because that sweet potato spikes my blood sugar does not mean I'm not going to eat it, because it's very healthy. It's got a lot of nutrients in it. It's got fiber. Long term, it's good for my health. Number one. Number two, the glycemic index is bunk in predicting glycemic response in individuals, because clearly it's wrong about me. Everything it said was going to spike my blood sugar, it didn't. And the things that it said weren't going to spike my blood sugar did. So let's get into the negatives. At first, the sensor was off. It was about, I'd say 10 to 20 points below what my finger stick test said. But in the defense of NutriSense, they make that very clear that that's a possible thing that happens. It may take about 24 hours for the CGM to acclimate to your body. After that original, I think it was like 1 to 2 days, it was very accurate. A big thing I didn't like was, as I showed you, wearing this big black thing on my frickin' arm in Texas heat, because I ain't walking around wearing long sleeve shirts. I'm walking around in tank tops, and everywhere I went, and maybe this is NutriSense's whole plan, is that I'm literally a walking advertisement. People would always ask me, what's that on your arm? What's going on there? And I would have to explain it. And that was really annoying to me. I would have much preferred if this was on like my abdomen or somewhere more conspicuous, or if instead of this being a big old black target on my arm, maybe offering different colored flesh tones so that it can match people's skin and people would just think, oh, that person got shot with an arrow. I'm not going to ask them about how they got that wound. I did list this as a positive, but it's also a negative. The amount of information that NutriSense gives you. I feel like it needs to be organized better or put in a different type of format, maybe short tutorials, video tutorials, or animations, because it was just walls and walls of text. There were so many data tables. It's good information, it's good data, but if you're somebody like me who only has 2 weeks and you're also an extremely busy person, you just don't have the time, number one, to read all of these things, and number two, you feel like, why would I want to invest in reading all of these things if I'm only gonna be using this for 2 weeks. Something did happen while I was using the app that I was not happy with. The app failed. One of the suggestions was to delete the app and reinstall it, which I did, and then I couldn't get back into the app. So I reached out to customer service, and they said that they were aware of the issue and they were working to get it resolved, and they would be updating everybody in the Facebook group. Well, I didn't like that because I was like, couldn't I just get an update through email? I don't want to join your Facebook group. I'm not a social person. I finally, after not getting any information and continuing to try to use the app and it wasn't working, I got added to the Facebook group, but I had to wait for an approval. And then I go in and I see no communication about the app being down. I saw one customer say, hey, the app's down. And then seeing a NutriSense employee saying, nope, it's working. So I was like, huh? But the app was down between about 4 p.m. and like 3 a.m. or something like that. So I didn't get any of that data. It was lost. I didn't like the fact that I would have to join a Facebook group to get updated on an app that I would be paying for. If I was paying hundreds of dollars, I would expect better service than that. Every day I would have a gap in the data around the same time. I don't know why. I never asked about it. But again, if I'm paying hundreds of dollars for something, like, you better not be gappy with my data. Now, this is the biggest negative, and that is cost. This is expensive. They have 2 plans that I know of. One plan, if you pay month to month, it's $350. You get 2 sensors since these last 2 weeks each, and you also get use of their application. You can get it for $199 a month if you commit to an entire year. The first month that you join, you get the complimentary service of a dietitian. I understand why this product and this service is expensive. This is a medical device that they are selling to you. They're paying for dietitians, they're running this application, they're processing all of this data. There isn't a high demand enough for them yet that would bring that price down. So I understand why these are expensive as opposed to something like Poppy Soda, where I know it costs them literal pennies to make that drink and they charge you like $4 a pop. Cost is already a huge barrier for people with diabetes. People who would benefit most from this will probably not be able to afford it. How cool would it be for every person who purchased a CGM through them, they would give a CGM to someone in need? Or even take a percentage of their sales to get these CGMs to people who need them. Come on, NutriSense. Do that. That would be freaking awesome. They do accept HSA and FSA payments, but they do not currently accept health insurance. CGM systems can vary in cost from about $160 a month to even $500 a month. So the cost for this product is about mid-range. The other thing that is an absolute negative. On their website, you can find out who their team is, and you can find out who their advisors are. They have 3. 2 of the advisors I looked into seem totes McGroats legit, experienced individuals, rational, sane. One of them is Dr. Paul Saladino. This man is a psychiatrist and is also certified in integrative and functional medicine.
Question that I often get is, Paul, what vegetables are okay to eat? My answer is no.
Penises are shrinking, taints are shrinking, testosterone is declining in both male and female babies.
First of all, who the frick is measuring babies' taints?
Celery is absolute bullshit. This is full of compounds called furanocoumarins, like psoralen, which can accumulate in the skin, cross-link DNA, and cause inflammation when exposed to ultraviolet light. Broccoli is bullshit.
He does not speak from science. He fearmongers against food because he sells books and programs promoting the carnivore diet. He calls himself the Carnivore MD. So NutriSense, all I'm going to say is, highly suggest you think long and hard about whether or not you want to be associated with that man. And that's all I'm going to say. Overall, out of all the health brands, health techie things that I have investigated, I was the most impressed with this company. In typical fashion, the founders of this company were the usual engineer paired with an MBA dude. They have some experience working as healthcare consultants, but I was like, typical. But here is where they differ, which is something I said, if Noom had done this, I would have had more respect for their program. They have a VP of health. She's a registered dietitian, licensed dietitian, and also something else. I can tell when I'm reading the information, like they had a whole article about does watermelon spike your blood sugar, but the article itself was very thorough, talked about all the nutrients that you can get from watermelon, how yes, there is sugar in watermelon, but if you're worried about your blood sugar, there are things that you can do, like eat less of it, eat it paired with something else. It was very balanced and informative as opposed to fear-mongering. So I can tell that their VP has got her fingers in the nutrition stuff. They know the importance of bringing in dietitians when it comes to dealing with food and how your body responds to food. I didn't see a lot of BS. I didn't see a bunch of health claims. I didn't see any type of fear-mongering against carbohydrates or blood sugar in general. I didn't see any talk about weight loss or anything. If I missed it, let me know. The product was very easy to use. There was a tiny learning curve, but once I got over that learning curve, it was super easy to use. I found the data very interesting. This allowed me to see a little bit behind the curtain and see how my body was functioning. And honestly, I wish I could have used it a little bit longer. But here's what I worry about. I worry about the fact that the Carnivore MD is their advisor. But it's not as worrisome because I feel like his craziness is balanced out by all the dietitians and the VP of health. I had to stop again because my battery died again. I need a new battery. This is taking way too long. I have to go to Trader Joe's, okay? I worry that people who maybe aren't working with their healthcare provider or maybe don't utilize the complementary dietitian to help guide them through what the data means, that people will interpret any type of blood sugar spike as being bad. You eat carbohydrates and your blood sugar doesn't spike, there's something wrong. The short amount of time that I spent in the Facebook group was a wee bit worrisome because there didn't seem to be a lot of guidance or oversight from people who worked with NutriSense, and instead people were just talking amongst themselves and just I could see the misinformation spreading and some problematic conversations. For instance, one of the first conversations I saw was a woman talking about how she was doing the keto diet and how proud she was showing everybody her blood sugar and that it was constantly around 70 or below. And I was like, that's literally the definition of being hypoglycemic. I worry about people making blood sugar the only factor for health. I talked about this in my glycemic index video. You can be managing your blood sugars by eating nothing but lard all day, but that isn't going to promote health in you in the long term. It will temporarily keep your blood sugar from spiking up and down, but that's it. I worry a bit about people becoming obsessive about the tracking. And full disclosure, I noticed myself doing this. I just kept scanning and being like, oh, what's going on? So this is what I think about it. If you are somebody with prediabetes, or you're somebody who hasn't been diagnosed yet, but you monitor your own blood sugar regularly, and you've been noticing that it's starting to get a bit out of whack. If you're somebody who has diabetes in your immediate or extended family, but you don't have it yet or you haven't been diagnosed, you will not be approved for a continuous glucose monitor through your insurance. So this could be a potential tool to help you kind of steer the boat when you have the time in the opposite direction before developing diabetes. But you would also have to have a disposable income because it's going to cost you, unless you want to sign up for an entire year, $350 a month. If you're somebody with type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and for whatever reason your insurance doesn't cover a continuous glucose monitor and also you have the funds to use this continuous glucose monitor, it may be for you. I don't think it's for keto caveman enthusiasts, people who have been terrified that carbohydrates are the reason why the United States is as sick as it is, because it will just support their misguided views about food. People who have a history of eating disorders or have some form of disordered eating, people who have obsessive compulsive disorder or maybe have some compulsive tendencies, because as I mentioned, I found myself obsessing over the data. People who are overall healthy, who get regular physicals and everything's okay, I don't think they need to consider using something like this. It's just gonna show you your body's working exactly how it should be working and you're doing fine. It's a very helpful, very easy to use tool that could benefit people who are experiencing blood sugar dysregulation, but it's just too expensive to help the majority of people that need it. Ooh, the dog's barking. Let's see if this microphone picks it up. Come on, I actually want you to bark this time. I'm doing a science project. I'm sciencing here. Of course, when I want it to bark, it doesn't bark. I'm gonna do it again and I'm gonna edit it out to make it look like this was all spontaneous. Please don't pick up the gardener outside that measures interstitial glucose measures. That's good. That measures why am I hot? Why am I hot right now? Am I going through the change? CGM, Of course the battery dies. It's because I talk too much. Any food